This video is brought to you by Law Excellence IAS Academy.
Dear students, good morning. Welcome to DEEP, Daily Editorial Enrichment Program of Law Excellence R&D. Let us start the discussion on today's newspaper, that is 16th July 2019. The first article for discussion, A Test of Law and Justice. This is about 103rd Constitutional Amendment Act. This Amendment Act is meant to provide for reservations to economically backward classes. Let us know the history of this. So, history of reservations are observed in India. The affirmative action, which started in Mysore first, is rooted in structural inequalities. The basis for this structural inequality in India was the caste. So, the caste based reservations were meant to distribute the opportunities across the social groups. So, initially, most of the public employment is dominated by few castes. In this context, diversification of castes across the public employment was the initial objective. And the similar objective was also stated in constitutional debates. So, to disavow the monopoly of certain caste groups in the public sector was stated to be the objective of public employment. And the second thing is compensatory discrimination principle. Historically, certain marginalized groups are placed at disadvantaged position. If you talk about Dalits, they are deprived of educational, economic, and employment opportunities. And also, they are made or they are unable to compete with the social groups which have got systematic long term advantage. In this context, to compensate for the discrimination which they faced historically, the reservations are provided to them. So the three major argument: end the caste monopolies on public employment. The second argument, compensation to the historical discrimination faced by certain groups. The third argument is to broaden the social base in public employment. In this context, 103rd Constitutional Amendment is bringing in economic status of an individual to provide for the jobs. Remember, financial position of an individual is not permanent as like a caste. It is a transient phenomenon. A person who can be poor today, he can become rich and well off tomorrow. It means that the economically backward classes, they are not permanent social group. So, on a transient social group which do not have an historical justification, providing reservations is bad injustice. That's what is the argument. So, the author also argues that this is a substantial question of law and this matter shall be referred to the constitutional bench. Next is waiting for a day break. This is about Chandrayaan 2. Remember that India is the fourth country to send a rover to the moon, and it is the first country to study the south pole of the moon. In this case, the rocket which is going to take it into the moon is GSLV Mk3. So, based on technology called cryogenic technology, which is also a dual technology. So, India has tested this cryogenic engine before, but however, small technical glitch postponed the things. So, when it can be launched again, so there has to be a launch window. So, how this launch window is observed, or what is the basis to figure this launch window? Remember, 15 days and is equivalent to one Earth day on the moon. So it means there has to be sun, and sun has to give solar energy for this rover to work. So when sun is there on the moon, then only this can be launched. So that's why the launch window comes once in a month. And the second factor which is going to talk about is once the moon is placed, Chandrayaan 2 is placed on the moon, we shall be able to see it from the earth. So when can we see that? When we have the sun on the moon. So that's why. So the factor of sun makes an important element with regard to the determination of launch window. So this is what this article talks about. So a hand to mouth budget. To understand this article, let us understand the revenue deficit. It is the difference between revenue receipts and revenue expenditure. If revenue expenditure is greater than revenue receipts, obviously it is the deficit. Today, revenue receipts of the government are decreasing. So the government has collected the tax revenues less than expected. The tax to GDP ratio is coming down from 11.9 to 11.7. Direct tax to GDP has come down 6.4 to 6.3. Indirect taxes to GDP has come down from 5.5 to 5.3. It means by and large the tax revenues are coming down. And the second is the total expenditure, revenue expenditure is increasing. So it is reaching up to 24 lakh crore rupees. And the second thing, the revenue expenditure side, the interest payments still the largest component of expenditure. Interest payments is the service which we are doing for the borrowings made in the past. So non-tax revenues, the government is expecting it from the dividends. A windfall from RBI, it is expecting this year around 90,000 crore rupees. It is expecting. So by and large, if we observe, the revenue expenditure is greater than revenue receipts by close to 7 lakh crore rupees. And the 7 lakh crore rupees government intend to borrow. And the second, on the capital receipts front, government is hopeful of the disinvestments. It is expecting around 1 lakh 5,000 crore rupees. And the second, with regard to capital expenditure, government is more depending upon the private investments to flow in. But however, there is no boost for the private investments in this budget. Then, where the investments are being expected from, it is from the foreign sources. India is looking for a free or else a cheap money, low interest money from the foreign countries. As again, the growth is slowing down, it is expected that interest rates across the world will come down. As they come down, India will become an attractive destination for investments. That might be the expectations of the government. The takeaway point over here is this: India's non-revenue revenue expenditure is increasing, capital expenditure is not up to the mark, which is not a very good sign for progressive economy such as this. The next, a WASH for healthcare. Here, WASH stands for water, sanitation, and hygiene. So, primary healthcare primarily depends upon WASH. It means any disease control, disease prevention, it depends upon the hygiene and sanitation. In India, it is neglected in the primary healthcare sector. So, authors suggest that WASH has to be given a priority through data collection and through health education of the people, development of standards and accountability mechanisms, we can strengthen the WASH framework in India. You know that Bangladesh has achieved zero open defecation through the promotion of WASH paradigm. The next is creating a fair digital payments market. In India today, the digital payments market is reaching to its peak, and WhatsApp, Amazon, Google, all these have come with their respective pay apps. All these pay apps work on a common interface, that is UPI. This unified payments interface system belongs to Government of India. So in this case, the foreign multinational companies are able to take the market of India with regard to digital payments based on the platform developed by India itself. China, on the other hand, it has encouraged the local companies like WeChat to promote this market for indigenous companies. So, what China did, one is data localization, second is providing for a platform first to these Chinese companies, and the third thing, it also has ensured an advantage for the local companies with the use of Chinese language. So, India can do the same thing. So, second, when these international companies are coming up, India is stating that data has to be localized. Remember, the data related to payments will be localized, not to the behavior of the people or not to the purchasing behavior of the people. And this purchasing behavior of the people is most important behavioral data for these companies to drive the consumer and to understand the consumer behavior. Obviously, that issue is going to show the concerns of the privacy. So, India cannot stop or make local companies advantageous only through data localization. More and above the data localization, a policy priority has to be given to the local companies to gain out of the digital payments market. That is what this article states. It no longer runs in the family. If you remember South Asia, it is notorious for family driven dynasties to run the countries. In India, Gandhi Nehru family. If you go to Pakistan, Bhutto family, Mazhabur Rahman family in Bangladesh, this is the story. In this context, today, all these dynasties are getting dismantled. So it means that a merit based democratic societies are expected to be created in South Asia soon. That is the essence. The next is opposition calls for a greater scrutiny on key bills. So, NIA bill, UAPA bill, Unlawful Activities Prohibition Act, and all these are been coming up now. And then we have this DNA Act. So, when these are coming up, these have a great impact on the security architecture of India. The NIA Act, its scope is been expanded to investigate cases related to drug, human trafficking, etc., and also to investigate the cases involving Indians and India's interests outside India. And Unlawful Activities Act, Prohibition Act, it is being amended to name, to include and remove certain people as individual terrorists. So the citizens can be designated as individual terrorists. DNA bill is meant to collect and store, use DNA for identification of individuals in criminal cases and also various other civilian uses such as parentage disputes, immigration, and transplantation of human organs, etc. So, these all the opposition is recommending to be referred to standing committees. Before 2014, it is by and large a norm that any bill which opposition did not accept is referred to the standing committee for an in-depth study of the bill. You can remember the standing committee was able to find a solution for this Lokpal bill, which has suffered a huge fraction or factionalization in Lok Sabha. So the standing committees makes the scrutiny of the bills much deeper. So after BJP has come to the power, so referring the bills to the standing committees has remarkably decreased. Previously it was 70%, now it is close to 26%. So that's a point we need to observe. Amended motor vehicles bill introduced. So this motor vehicles bill is not obligation on the states to implement, it is only voluntary for them. That way do not affect the states interests or federal division of powers. But there is one most important point over here: protection of good Samaritans. Whenever a road accident happens, the passerby, if he helps that accident victim, so he has to face certain legal questions. So to avoid this, these good Samaritans, though willing to help them, they never do that. So in this case, the present bill tries to protect good Samaritans from unnecessary legal recourses. And second, there is another bill spoken in this article that is called Surrogacy Bill. So according to this, India is meant to promote altruistic ethical surrogacy. A woman can rent her womb for surrogacy once in a lifetime, and she has to be the relative of that individual who is opting for surrogacy. So like this, these are bringing this. Next is Indian beaches are in the race to crush the blue flag challenge. This blue flag challenge is to identify the beaches that meet certain environmental standards. This is brought in by Federation or Foundation for Environmental Education located in France. In India, in prelims, you can be asked this question: match the following question, which beach is located where? So Shivrajpur beach in Gujarat, Ghagla beach in Diu. These two in the first phase are going to be modified and amenities are expected to be improved to get this blue flag. And then Supreme Court startled by delay in child rape cases. You know that a society which cannot protect its future generations is expected to perish. So the future generations are the wealth of a given society. So making them to grow in an environment free from fear is the objective. So sexual offences are one thing which are growing in India, especially against children. So there is an act, Prevention of Children from Sexual Offences Act. Recently, Cabinet also made a decision to provide for death penalty for sexual offences against the children. So this POCSO Act is not being effectively implemented. Many of the cases on offences on children are still pending in the judiciary. So that is a blot on Indian justice system and Indian society at large. These are the articles for today. Thank you. Have a good day. All the best.